Our next leadership dialogue will discuss the material transformation through innovation. To moderate this discussion, I'd like to welcome Mirko Rubeis, MD and Senior Partner, BCG. He is a Managing Director and Senior Partner, the global management consultation firm of BCG, and the world-leading strategy advisor. Mirko leads a refinery and petrochemical segment for BCG globally, driving leading-edge content in sustainability, digital, and operational improvement programs. During his time at BCG, he advised oil companies, chemical companies, and investment companies across Europe, Middle East, and Africa on their most pressing business issues. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. Mirko on stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it's a great pleasure and honor to introduce and facilitate this very important and interesting panel. Innovation is essential for the competitiveness of the chemical industry, but even more importantly, it is key to move towards sustainability, decarbonization, circularity. And these are topics that are essential for the survival and for prosperity of the industry. Before inviting the distinguished panelists on stage, let me share with you just 5 slides. Just want to frame the discussion and create a bit the foundation for a shared understanding of what we mean by innovation in the chemical industry. First of all, why we focus on innovation? Innovation in the chemical industry go hand in hand with value creation. On this chart, you see an interesting analysis. If you take the 20 most innovative chemical companies, and we use as a proxy the R&D spend, so the 20 biggest spender in R&D in the chemical industry, and of course, we can argue if it is the right proxy or not for innovative companies. R&D spend not necessarily translate always in good innovation. But let me pass this proxy. If you take the 20 most innovative companies, the index from 2007, and you compare with the overall index of the average chemical industry, you will see that the most innovative companies outperform the index by 6% per year in terms of total shareholder return. That is the value stock plus all the dividends over the period. 6% per year in increased growth. Now, if you compound that over 15 years, essentially you will get a value that is 2.5 times higher than the general index. So that is why innovation is so important and is so entrenched to value creation. How do we define innovation in the industry? I mean, we would like to think of innovation split into 3 big buckets: process innovation, material innovation, and innovation in business models. Now, when we look at innovation, we always want to test to make sure that it really relates to value creation, that always pass this test of these 4 questions. Is it feasible? I think that's obvious. Is it feasible from a technology point of view, from a market point of view, and so on? But also, the second step is very important. Is it desirable? Is address customer needs? Or how we like to call it, does it solve for customer friction? Does it solve a problem for customers? Number 3, is it viable? And this, I think, is very interesting also in the chemical industry when you think about circularity and many other topics. Can we command a premium? Is economically valuable in the sense that we command a premium and reward our investments in innovation? And last but not least is, can we win in this? And winning means, do we have an unfair advantage in the industry that is difficult to replicate? When we talk about unfair advantage, can be, of course, patents, can be knowledge, can be access to market, can be assets. But these are always a test we need to run, when you think about innovation, so that innovation really translates into the bottom line of the company. Now, we talk about process innovation, material innovation, business model innovation. Now, let's give you just some example so that doesn't remain kind of a theoretical framework, but really kind of is something tangible. When you think about process innovation, the topics that today we see as a particularly kind of emotion in the industry are this one. This is not an exhaustive list. There are others, but just to give you a bit of a sense of what is kind of driving innovation in the industry. Now, all-to-chemical. All-to-chemicals is a big area that will require process innovation to make it more and more economically viable. CO2 to chemicals is another quite interesting and promising area. Essentially today, with the CO2, with low carbon hydrogen, and with the renewable energy, you are able to basically synthesize any kind of petrochemicals kind of you use today, replacing hydrocarbons and heat. But again, innovation is required to make it really kind of economically viable and attractive, competitive with the current petrochemicals. We have the topics of green chemicals, also another very important one. The chemical recycling one. I mean, a lot of the industry went a long way since the kind of old kind of typical pyrolysis kind of process. Methane, methanol to olefins, so far has been mainly kind of utilized and leveraged, in China using, methanol from coal or from gas, but it's an area also that is undergoing quite substantial research and innovation since the first commercialization in 2010. And then across all processes, when you talk about process innovation, there is a big topic of the contribution that AI can give, for example, to R&D. Now, let's also be clear. I mean, sometimes we hear a lot about the AI in R&D as kind of the issues, the point solving all problems. I mean, this is not kind of typically the case, but there is a lot of application where AI can help in R&D and in other innovation topics. Now, let's give some example of what you mean also by material innovation. This is more kind of, we talk about the material that will go to market. So there is, of course, a big topic regarding bio-based chemicals, biodegradable kind of materials, and these are big buckets that I've seen a lot of innovation, a lot of research go into that. There is a big item on circular products. And circular products is, we will see, is a matter of products, but is even more importantly, we see in the next slide, also a topic of new business models. There is a lot of new application that are kind of pushing a lot of funds and a lot of effort into pushing innovation with on a number of applications. Let's think about battery or fuel cell materials, membranes, 3D printing, graphene, etc. So there's a lot of specific applications that is driving a lot of also innovation research. I would also point out the innovation in catalysts. Now you could argue that if catalyst is really kind of a product innovation or is more process innovation, but wherever we put it in terms of bucket, this is an area that is also commanding a lot of interest and focus in terms of R&D. Now, last but not least, let's talk also about new business models. And here we mean all the innovation that affects our go-to-market, how we commercialize, how we conduct business, that is not a technical process and is not kind of a product. And I will point out three aspects of a new business model. The first one is kind of this digital disintermediation, as we call it. That is essentially, let's think about marketplaces with the potential to disintermediate between producers and customer. Think about the impact that the Amazon of this world could bring to the chemical industry. There is another big area of business that is circularity, that is witnessing the emerging of new ecosystems. The brands with the technology companies, with the chemical producer. So there is a new ecosystem, a new kind of area, value pools that are emerging, And these value pools are not yet fully crystallized, so there is a lot of room and space, for companies to position themselves in this space. Then there is another very interesting topic related also how do we do business into new ecosystem, for example, for new technologies that are emerging or new projects. All-to-chemicals is an area of that will require clearly kind of innovation in terms of how we build kind of plants. But let's think also about new way of partnering, of alliances. Let's think about, for example, kind of the electric furnaces, the electric crackers, right, in which many players now are joining forces on that. So this just to give, again, some examples of innovation in business model. So process, material, business model. These are the three buckets. Now, with this in mind, let me call to stage our panelists, with which we will discuss innovation in terms of what are the areas of biggest potential, how to make innovation happen. So let me welcome Bob Maughon, the Executive Vice President of SABIC for Sustainability and Technology Innovation. He's also Chief Technology Officer and Chief Sustainability Officer of SABIC. He oversees an organization with 20 research centers and a very talented large team of scientists that deliver innovative, differentiated, and sustainable products and application. Additionally, Bob is also responsible for corporate sustainability, technology licensing, and technology ventures. Let me welcome also Jean Sentenac, President and CEO of Axens Group. Axens was founded in 2001, and John was appointed President and CEO in 2002. Since then, he has guided the development of Axens as a world-class partner and supplier to the industry of hydrocarbon processing. Axens' mission is to provide inventive and sustainable solutions for cleaner mobility, chemical intermediate solution, and natural gas and effluent treatment, and overall supporting the environmental and energy transition challenges of today. Let me welcome also Bryan Glover, who has been with Honeywell UOP for 37 years. He has served as a President and CEO of UOP and is now the Chief Growth Officer for Honeywell Performance Material and Technologies Business Group. Honeywell UOP has more than a century of experience in developing technology for the refining, petrochemical, and gas processing industries. As a leader in renewable energies, UOP plays also an essential role in helping customers in the energy transition. Last but not least, let me welcome also Dr. Wolfram Stichert, CEO and founder of the German company HTE, the High Throughput Experimentation Company. HTE was founded in 1999 and is the world-leading solution provider for lab-scale R&D workflows. In Heidelberg, in Germany, HTE builds highly efficient reactor systems for catalysis R&D and offers also contract research programs. Welcome to all. Welcome to the stage. Dear Bob, let's start with you. Digital and automation are one of those topics we saw that are transversal to innovation, being process, product, business model. What role do you see for digital, for accelerating innovation and time to market?
Yeah, no, thank you, Mirko, for the question. And I think we've all been exposed to this topic of digital and AI and machine learning, and you hear it throughout the sessions. Comments, to Shah as well for a great presentation on the opportunity there. Before I talk about the value of it, let me just maybe take a step back and how I look at innovation and the culture and the companies that we're in. To me, for innovation to be successful, there are really sort of three key elements, I think. One is the culture. What's the culture of the company, the collaboration within the company, the recognition that manufacturing, technology, the business, finance, and strategy need to be connected together to deliver value. as you highlighted, there needs to be a commitment to the investment in innovation. And to me, it's less important what that percentage is, but that there's a clear commitment to investing across a cycle to deliver the results. And there needs to be clarity on where to focus the results, where to focus the investments, where to focus the innovation, where the opportunity for the company is, and where the company's investment strategy is headed. And a lot of times we jump to things like AI or digital as a way to solve innovation challenges, but if you don't have those three things right, you'll just invest resources in inefficient places. And I've had the privilege, really, of working in the sector for almost 30 years now. And we've advanced a lot of capabilities to make innovation faster, more efficient, more effective. It's actually great to be on the panel with Wolfram because SABIC has been a longtime partner with HDE on high throughput and automation, because for the last 20 years, automation was the true transformation within technology and innovation. It was the way to number up, to shrink reactor sizes, to number up the testing, and to more quickly get to optimized results. That's why I focused on those first 3 points, which is if you don't know where you're trying to focus, why you're trying to focus, how you're going to deliver the impact, you can do a lot of experiments quickly, but it won't lead to a lot of value. But this next wave is taking the results from things like the work that HDE does and others in automation, and leveraging AI, I think, has a considerable opportunity to further accelerate the pace that automation gave us. Just within SABIC, and I want to commend our CEO and the leadership team for really investing in the digital platform and our digitalization efforts overall. Within our technology organization, we're focused on capabilities that, one, give us the foundation for the data across our assets, strong quality, high quality data, connected not only for our labs but manufacturing. AI tools to help us capture information while we're in the laboratory itself, very base capabilities, but to enable us to get the most benefit from what we're studying. But then leveraging AI tools for advanced experimentation processes, so looking at virtual experimentation, looking at formulations, composites, new materials, where you can leverage AI tools to help you design and actually reduce the number of actual experiments that you have to do in the lab and bring more successful ones forward. Knowledge management tools to help us access information externally and internally, to make sure that we're looking at what has been done, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and can help guide us on the next phase of experimentation. Image software that can help us do image selection and analyze things better than we can physically do ourselves. So there's tremendous capability to transform how we do research. But if you don't know where you're trying to focus, what the key questions are for your business, where the opportunities are, you could waste all that capability. So to me, it's very important that we invest in it. I'm proud of what we're doing at SABIC in that space. But it has to be coupled to a clear strategy, clear commitment to investment, and a clear understanding of where the challenges are for your space. I think if you combine those two things together, you're going to see an ability to even further ramp up the impact from innovation. Yeah,
no, thank you, Bob. Very good points. And just staying on the topic on R&D, Wolfram, this increasing demand for new products, this new process innovation, of course, it's changing a lot the requirements also for R&D. And you will see that very firsthand. What are the key R&D challenges, and how companies are fostering innovation while all these kind of new elements are emerging in terms of process and products? And in this context also, just following up on the point of Bob on digital, how would you rate the importance of digital technology in R&D?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Let me first thank the organizers for introducing me here on the panel. It's really an honor because HDE represents some animal which is a little bit seldom in our market space. It's a startup. Yeah? So how many startup or ex-startup do you see? It's not many.
You're not a startup anymore, right?
Yeah, well, it's 350 people today, yeah, and really grown a little bit. But I have to connect to something Bob told us before. Yeah, so if we would have sticked to our original idea, like just doing high throughput experimentation, just doing like fast experimentation as fast as possible, we would be dead, actually. Yeah? So we were able to transform the focus of our work, yeah, to a point where Yeah, where information depth of an experiment, the quality of the data is in the focus, and this is then accelerated. Yeah? And this is maybe also telling us something about introducing software and AI without the quality basis, without the foundation of the science, we will be not successful. Yeah? As I said, today, not a startup anymore and belonging to BASF since 2008, we are proud that we have a large customer base here as well in the room with oil and gas and refinery and chemical companies. And one thing I have to say, 90% of what we do today is sustainability related work. Yeah? So this is actually moving all of us and this is as well done at HT. So back to your question, what are the key challenges for R&D departments? First, it's very clear until 2050 and afterwards, R&D departments will be in focus because sustainability, and this has been said here already in that conference, sustainability is innovation. Yeah? And there's a good citation of the IEA in 2021. Yeah? They're saying half of the world's emission cuts until 2050 will require technology that is not commercially available yet, meaning that's a call on all of us. And well, we have to get something on the plate. So of course it's also batteries and CCUS, but as you pointed out as well, many topics as well in the process development area. Yeah? So CO2 to X you mentioned, yeah, like maybe dry reforming or also reverse water gas shift. There's the generation of hydrogen, of course electrolysis, but also something like methane pyrolysis. The transportation of green hydrogen, yeah, so maybe via ammonia, yeah, ammonia formation, ammonia splitting, and syngas value chain, sustainable aviation fuels is also a topic. Renewables as a co-feeding or a full renewables feed, and pyroil as well. And there's one point which is maybe important. Yeah? This is who would you expect to develop a process like methane pyrolysis? Who would you expect to do something like these processes you said or what I added? Yeah? In a way, this will be the legacy players. Yeah? And this is maybe also an argument for us not being only a problem maker, but also the problem solver of that, what we face until 2050. Because to be successful, you need experience, you need assets, you need labs, you need workforce to a well degree which is world class, and these are the players which are on the market. So your question was, how do these R&D departments adapt? Well, of course, I could go into the technologies and see, okay, we're talking about renewables, yeah, we're talking about a little bit broader molecular breadth, meaning we have analytics challenges, but also components. It might be the actual challenge in an R&D project to just pump a feed, for example. Yeah? Of course, we have to adapt to that, and there's the isolation of target products, also eventually a challenge. Yeah? With all these carbon management processes, we have also often demanding conditions. For example, high temperatures. This is going also in the component direction. But I think the main adaptation all R&D departments need nowadays is speed. Yeah? 2050 is around the corner. We have to speed up. We have to collaborate more. And of course, we have to use available technology. And which available technology is there? Well, it has been pointed out here already, is automation and first and foremost also digitalization. That means removing Excel, that means streamline automation concept in your laboratories. This means the introduction of data science into your R&D departments. And this means, of course, also focus on data quality. Yeah? AI doing on poor quality data, there's no point in it. That's just lost. So this gives me direct to your third question, importance of digital technology in materials R&D. And there's also a good market report citation. EHS Market told us in 2019 in their Catalyst, Petroleum and Chemical Process Market Review that digital or HT will be a new R&D paradigm, and they can lead to a change for the catalyst business as a whole. Yeah. And as HTE, we have a special perspective on that because we build a, well, good and viable business exactly on this part. And this is because many market players don't prioritize so much digitalization and automation, and a little bit tend to underestimate it, the value and the possibilities we have. Well, to say that clear digital technology in catalyst and process R&D is something different compared to molecular science, for example, to organic synthesis, where you can simulate basically everything. But it means, in our area, simulation plus experimentation. And this, I guess, this will be important to reach our goal in 2050.
It's quite interesting that automation that is considered a bit kind of the old-fashioned way is still kind of a big arsenal, a big weapon in the arsenal to speed up R&D. While I think you are also quite cautious. I think also from what Bob said before about AI. AI can definitely help, but it needs data, and it's one of the tools, but will not be the one that will change completely R&D. There is some fundamentals that need to be in place, and I think it's an important message because sometimes the AI is a bit over everywhere, right? Yep. And we need to be cautious also of fixing the basic before thinking of doing AI. Yeah. Good. John, let's move to another topic that is quite transversal, like digital is transversal to all kind of innovation. Also, kind of the topic of energy transition, decarbonization is quite transversal to business model, materials, or process. How do you see kind of the decarbonization topics and sustainability in general kind of impacting the new priorities for product development, new process innovation? And also, if you have a perspective also on some of the major technologies that, for example, we talk now about CO2x or the bio-based it would be really game changers or kind of more niche markets? How do you see that?
Yeah, thank you, Mirko. Good morning, all. Very pleased to be here. Thank you for GPCA for inviting me. Before getting to your question, allow me to rebound on what Wolfram has said. This is pre-ad, Wolfram. So when I started in Axens 20 years ago, when we were developing a process, we were developing maybe 10 samples of 100 grams catalyst and testing them, and it will take us 1 year. With the tools HTE has developed now, with a few grams of catalyst, you can test 15 reactors in parallel, and in 1 year you would test maybe 100 different samples and process conditions. So it has improved dramatically the productivity and the accuracy of process development, and I think we can thank a company like HTE for allowing that. Coming to your question, I think sustainability, we have here that word many times during these last 2 days. It's becoming a very important objective for all our chemical industry, without forgetting the two other ones which remain: cost competitiveness and product innovation. So we see now all the chemical companies, they have a scope 1 and 2 reduction objective for 2030. Most of them, which is in fact the energy they consume. A lot of them, they have scope 3 also objective, which is the product inflow, raw materials, and so forth. And some of them are also targeting net zero in 2050. So all this is part of our industry now. But to try to illustrate how innovation will help us to go in with that objective, I would like to take the example of running shoes. I don't know how many runners there are in the room, or tentative runner like me, but it struck me if you follow that sport. In September 2023, the female Ethiopian marathon runner, Tigist Assefa, beat the world record of marathon by 2 minutes, which is huge on 2 hours of marathon. She was wearing Adidas, now so famous, Evo 1 shoes, which you can buy for €500, so quite high-end shoes. And these shoes, if you look at them, they are really coming from chemical innovation. They are lightweight, I think 138 grams for the two of them. They have a very thick, I regret not to have brought them here, a very thick ethyl vinyl acetate floor, very large, ultra bouncing. So it's really an example how, with the end market, the chemical industry was able to innovate, to bring on the market a new product. That strikes me. So I went on Adidas site, but it's not only that. If you look on Adidas site, they will claim that 99% of the PET they use to make the shoes is recycled. And they also tell you, when you have your used shoes, you can bring them back. That's called it bring back. We give you some points, and we will recycle them. So we see that the end industry, like the shoes industry, running shoes in that case, is pushing the chemical industry for innovation, which has always been the case, but also product recyclability. So that I think that's working with the customer, as always, that you are innovating in that exam. Coming to your question about carbon chemistry or biochemistry for the chemicals, and I see CO2 transformation is becoming a reality in the fuel market. E-fuel, there are many projects. Some of them are coming to reality. Also, we see many people coming to e-methanol, which will be a building block for the chemicals. I think also some company like Covestro, they are going to polycarbonate from CO2. So CO2 as a feedstock is happening. Bio feedstock also, for example, ourselves as Axens, we have co-developed with the tire manufacturer and Michelin a process to make butadiene from ethanol. They wanted that because they already use natural latex, and they want to have the two coming from bio. But I think this will remain specific application. I believe the mainstream of our industry and to be cost competitive will go, and we have many projects in the region to crude to chemical integrated complex, energy efficient, using either electricity or low carbon hydrogen to feed the energy, to have low carbon products, and with option to recycle whatever is the shoes or the plastic recycling for the short life plastic, such as packaging or shoes or whatever. So I think that's going to be the winning strategy to decarbonize our industry, because if you produce long-term plastic such as insulation foam or parts for buildings, it's already a decarbonization because you're storing carbon. So what you need to decarbonize is the energy you use and the short life plastics, recycling them. So I think I see that as the winning next year strategy for the maintain competitiveness, but also going to low carbon and decarbonize our industry.
So I think the bio will stay a bit kind of for specific application, etc. CO2 to X, you see that scaling up potentially a bit more than the.
I think CO2 to X. I mean, we're following different projects to make fuels, SAF, for example. Mm-hmm. So e-fuel, it's becoming a reality, provided you have enough low carbon electricity, as was said this morning. So this is going to become a reality. Technologies are there, but of course the cost of these products is higher than fossil-based. So. That will remain specific application, either driven by regulation or driven by the end market on when people want to have this bio label for their end products.
And with this, let's move to another topic, because another key ingredient sometimes to make this thing competitive is regulation. No? And so, Bryan, on the regulatory framework. We know that's a key enabler for innovation, because sometimes can put into money things that otherwise would take much longer to be optimized. How can regulation accelerate the transition in the chemical industry?
Okay, well, certainly an interesting question, right? There's a lot of ways regulation can help. There's a lot of ways regulation can hurt. And I think we all want to find, I think society as a whole wants to find the right balance of regulation. And so, if I think about the topics that we've talked about already, one of the keys, we spent some time talking about innovation and digitization and other things that can speed innovation. And I think that remains an important thing today, right? To innovate quicker, to develop more significant innovations and to do them faster. But one of the biggest challenges in implementation of new technology is actually to build the first example of something. And that's one of the, almost no matter what the cycle of innovation is, no matter how great we can, reduce the scale of experimentation, increase the speed, leverage AI or other big data techniques to look at the data, you're still left with that transition from the concept to the first commercial application. And you in your slides in the preamble, you had mentioned emerging technologies. One of them that I always like to point to as an example of the time it takes for commercialization is methanol to olefins. So a technology that was actually developed in what today are UOP laboratories back in 1985, 1986. The silica alumina phosphate material that's at the heart of that was discovered, it was synthesized, it was quickly determined that it was useful for methanol to olefins at very high selectivity. That technology was developed in the 90s and in the 2000s and really sat on a shelf both in the US and to a certain extent in China, not being commercialized until 2010, 2012, simply because, among other things, the risk of new technology commercialization is relatively high. If you're talking about a large complex that's going to do important new things, the new technology may be just one piece of a larger interconnected system. And so, things where regulations can help are, one, creating I'll say a level playing field, or at least a playing field where people understand what the opportunities are. So whether that's, some sort of a global legislation on or, interconnected regulation on carbon and how carbon is valued, or whether it's regulation that can support commercialization. So when governments step in and help support first-of-a-kind technology and first-of-a-kind commercialization, that can be a big help because the risk or the perceived risk in many cases is high, and getting to that first step, no matter how quickly the technology was developed, is very important. And I think that's probably even more important now as we see innovation in lots of areas and maybe more startups in, I'll say, hard technology innovation, right? We're used to thinking about startups in the area of software and things like that, where, the consequences of a beta program that doesn't work quite right aren't that high. The consequences of a minimum viable product when you're building a petrochemical plant or something like that are extraordinarily high. And one of the great challenges in technology development is the fact that most of the things that we usually think about in terms of development, understanding the basic chemistry, developing a catalyst, those are usually just the first steps, right? The real hard work comes with understanding, what are the minor contaminants, what are the challenges in actually taking a catalyst that was made in the lab and making tons of it at a time and getting the same formulation. So anything that can be done on the regulatory side that supports first commercializations, anything that supports, I'll say, common frameworks and common understandings so that markets aren't unnecessarily competing with one another. And I think regulation that looks at the impact rather than, hydrogen is a great example, right? There's a lot of discussion about green hydrogen and blue hydrogen and turquoise and all the various kinds. At the end of the day, the goal is to produce hydrogen in a responsible way that's got the lowest carbon impact on the planet. And so we shouldn't worry about if it's blue, if it's green, if it's purple or turquoise or whatever, but what's its impact? Sustainable aviation fuel, another thing in the same vein, right? There's a lot of ways to make kerosene for for jets from fossil products or from non-fossil products. But at the end of the day, the focus should be about getting to the lowest carbon intensity that we possibly can with as much of that product mix as we can. So regulation that really looks at things in terms of its impact rather than the route or the process, I think is important. Regulation or support for first-of-a-kind commercialization, whether that's in partnership with technology providers or commercial entities that are using the technology, and then support for end markets and users, right? So if we want to get, I think about, one area is chemical recycle of plastics. At some point we'll look back and we'll say, oh yeah, it's so obvious today, right? There's a market for products and there's, and that's joined with a market for the offtake, and people make products and they make them within a certain specification and then people know how to buy them and use them. That's the market we're used to if it's fuels or for bulk petrochemicals. But those markets don't necessarily self-organize. And so regulation that can help that organization and support industry to come out with, okay, here's the range of specifications that I need to hit in order to be able to sell a product into that market. Here's the range of specifications that I need to hit in order to be able to be a purchaser of that, and then be assured that sustainability is sort of built in. So I think those are, at a really high level, the ways that regulation can support. As I say, regulation, when it's not coordinated, can do a lot of bad things. But I think we all want, including the people making the regulations, they want them to be
And we saw also
impactful.
very different approaches, right,
Yeah,
on the two
that's
sides of the ocean. In the US with the IRA is much more kind of a carrot, no, right? In Europe with the CBAM and the other is much more of a stick, right? So there is also very different approaches across geographies that also make for global companies quite, I would not say challenging, but you need to have a very articulated approach to navigate.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think that's a place where, companies and people in the market can, encourage governments to work together on, regulatory approaches that support everyone.
Let's stay on the last example. You mentioned circularity, right? I mean, maybe to Bob, in SABIC, circularity is a big topic, True Circle. I mean, you have done a lot of great initiatives on that front. There are new ecosystems emerging. I mentioned before during the presentation, from the brands to the chemical producer and to everything in between, there are new ecosystems emerging, new value pools. Do you see that more kind of a threat or an opportunity for chemical producers?
Yeah, no, great question, and it's an opportunity. I think the moment we get into this mindset of threat, I think it constrains how we think about the problem. And you highlighted the example of True Circle with SABIC. I mean, I think going back into the history, it's kind of an interesting one to talk about. I mean, and I really appreciate Bryan's comment on, let's say, I think of it in terms of this risk point. The circular plastics market, to your point, wasn't really well understood if I go back 5 years ago, right? What is it going to be? Is there going to be a premium? How will customers view it? How will we manage the waste? How will we manage the movement of it through the systems? How will supply chains work? There were lots of questions and lots of reasons not to proceed into the space. And it's very easy to put together an NPV model that says this is a challenging project. At the end of the day, some of these transitions that we're talking about, and I don't think it's circular or it's decarbonization, are going to require us to take very smart, rational risk to demonstrate and test value chains and allow them to self-organize, because they're not going to self-organize on their own. And regulation, as Bryan said, can be helpful in that front, but rarely in our history has regulation been well-defined and then investment happen after. Typically, there's a phase of having to figure out what's going to be an enabling regulation, how to effectively do it, and to ensure that it happens maybe in concert with multiple steps. And so the True Circle example to me is a good one because the SABIC business took a risk. They took a risk to put Piol into a cracker, and I think, I want to commend our manufacturing team, the business teams, for saying we're going to take this risk and do this smartly, do all the risk mitigation necessary. But the beauty of that back in 2019 is that we demonstrated product that you could actually go to customers and you could actually have a discussion about the value. You could engage a brand, you could engage a retailer, you could engage a converter, you could test business models, test the value. And what you find is that there's a huge opportunity. Yes, there are challenges. We face a lot of technical challenges with How do we bring the cost down for production of these bottles? Are there new ways to produce circular products? How are we going to manage the upstream side of waste? And these are all still challenges, but each step where we go to scale, what you see is there's an opportunity in the market, there's value in the market, and the companies that go first in the logical way and in smart steps are going to have an opportunity to shape the regulatory needs, to shape the value chain, maybe even to help organize that ecosystem. And so I think for us, we see it as a huge opportunity. Yes, it has challenges. It has technical risk, implementation risk. We have to build new capabilities in terms of our sales organization, our technical organizations. We have to think about new business models, as you highlight. We have to take some steps on risk. But at the end, the companies that can lead through a transition on circular, and I believe we're one of those, they're the ones that are going to come through this transition in a leading position. And so waiting for it to sort of optimize, waiting for the right regulation, waiting for a full clarity on how all the waste is going to be developed, how all the systems are going to work, that's where people think about threat. But if you think about taking the first steps and engaging in the marketplace, I think you'll see there's significantly more opportunity.
Yeah. I had yesterday a very interesting thought. So typically we think about circular products always a green premium that would have. But I think there was a way of thinking these would be two different markets, the virgin resins and the circular products, because we were different customers, different supply, so the completely different dynamics. It's not just the same market with a premium, but it would be probably different cycles. There would be also the cycle could be counter-cyclical or things like that.
You could see this, and you could, I think, see new business models for managing that waste. I mean, I think that's a kind of an interesting question long-term is, if you're a brand owner, do you want to engage in the value chain the way you have before, or do you want somebody to manage the plastic materials through the value chain for you? So I think there are a lot of opportunities to think differently about how we approach it. But for sure, what I can say today is that, because of the consumer pressures, because of the evolving regulatory landscape, there's a clear understanding that a greater degree of circular products are needed, that investments need to happen, that there's pressure on suppliers to come with innovation in that space. Is there going to be an ability to secure the premium and the value across the portfolio indefinitely? No, I think we're going to have to continue to optimize. But I think one thing that's missed in this area, right? I mean, our industry has delivered the growth of plastics greater than GDP for decades because the materials themselves are fantastic materials that enable so much in terms of the quality of life for individuals. But also we've optimized those assets for efficiency and production and value for decades. So we're going to have to do the same in these new spaces. And that's why, this perfect solution isn't going to be there. We're going to have to take investments and learn and continue to optimize because we're competing against an asset envelope that has had, over 50 to 100 years of time to optimize. And so I'm very confident that we'll be able to advance those capabilities, to be able to advance a portfolio that will remain competitive for the long term. But we do have to engage with the value chain very differently than we have in the past, to your point. I think there can be very different business models, very different ways to capture value. And again, I think the companies that don't engage in this transition, I think they're going to be left behind.
Yeah. And staying on recycling, John, most companies are investing in recycling, in a way or the other. But they're using also different recycling pathways, from mixed chemical recycling, mechanical, How that affect the different business models? So there will be different business model linked to the different recycling pathways that we'll adopt. How do we monetize the different?
I think if you look at to give some figures, I think in the world only 10% overall of the plastics are recycled. In Europe, which is probably the continent which is the most advanced, a lot of the plastic is collected, the plastic waste, but only 1/3 is going to recycling. The rest is going to incineration or to landfill. So there is a huge potential and a huge opportunity, as Bob was saying, to address in that recycling business. Today, the usual way to recycle is mechanical recycling. But you can process transparent PET, for example, to transparent PET. So this you can do. What chemical recycling, which many companies like Europe ourselves that develop technologies is adding, is to be able to process unsorted waste or waste with pigments, impurities, metals, whatever. So we can extend the range of the waste that would be processes. Then, as Bob was mentioning, new business model will have to be implemented. We as technology providers, we have to bring down the cost of investment of this technology to make them affordable for our clients. But also, we have to help our clients source the feedstock, which is a new value chain that has to be created. And also, our clients have to be able to sell a premium on the market. So far, I understand that the first units that coming on stream, they have been able to pre-sell to end users their outputs with a relatively good margins. This is because if you look at the advertisement on Coca-Cola, Danone or Nestle, they all say that by 2025 they would be using for their packaging at least 50% of recycled plastic. Even some of the bottles, they are 100%. So there is a track on the market. All this now has to, as Bob said, the one entering before, they make their experience, probably the learning curve will make this a viable business for the long term, and we will have all to work together to make it a viable business, because I think it is very important for our industry, chemical industry, to solve this issue of pollution by plastics, which is not good for ourselves and for the world. So that a lot of it is starting. It will become a reality. The regulation, as Bob said, will come after. Maybe in Europe, I think they will issue it next year for the so-called mass balance calculations that you can make with your cracker. But we have to work hand in hand to make it happen.
And it's obvious that you still have mechanical and chemical, both will be part of the mix, so they are not mutually exclusive, they will be part of the, but if you had to place a bet on which one will have the highest innovation potential, where you see the most breakthrough?
We should not oppose mechanical and chemicals, I think, because they are not addressing the same, as I tried to explain, the same feedstocks and problematic. Mechanical has been existing for a long time in many countries. I think chemical is quite new. There's new technology. We are at demonstration stage. There's a lot of improvement can be expected, has to be expected on the long run to decrease the capital cost, but also improve the efficiencies of the process, make them bigger, economy of scale, and reach higher and higher conversion and product purity.
Good. Bryan, let's move at the customer interface, not the way in which companies also sell to the market. Digital is disrupting also that aspect. Is potentially we see emergence of marketplaces, of new digital kind of platform that potentially can disintermediate producer, from customer. Is that really a threat? We'll see kind of an Amazon coming and disintermediate the chemical producer, or will be kind of limited in scale?
Well, yeah, I think in terms of the markets that develop, digital marketplaces have been evolving for a long time and becoming more and more popular. And I think, as I look at, certainly depending on where you are in the industry, from a producer's perspective, I think there are reasonable opportunities for digital marketplaces. Certainly, it's not going to take over everything. From a technology producer perspective, I think the same thing is true in that there are, opportunities for products and services that can be provided through digital marketplaces. I think the, technology itself maybe is not something that lends itself well to a digital marketplace, but the collaboration around technology and working together, I think more and more as partnerships is something that is well aligned with, the evolving digital world, whether it's, sharing information or working together digitally. Because I think one of the things that, in talking a little bit earlier about developing for commercialization and developing for implementation, a key part of that, and I think the key thing that we will have to see going forward to support more rapid development of technology is, much greater sharing of information digitally, but also much greater collaboration of technology providers and technology users in order to develop in a way that supports that first unit, that first implementation. And I think that's really sort of evolving, and it's a little bit off topic of the question, but if I think about the way the technology market, if you will, has worked for a long time, is companies like UOP or companies like Axens have gone to the market, tried to understand what was needed, but then in many cases kind of gone back to the lab and tried to invent and create those things and then say, hey, look, we've got something new and I think it solves your problems. You have some discussions with people and you find out, well, maybe you didn't quite get it right, and you iterate and evolve. And that's worked well in the past, but I think in the world today, as we start to think about the pace, and we've talked a lot about the pace, digital engagement, early engagement, and really designing together for first implementation, I think becomes critical, or we'll never keep up with the pace. Mm-hmm. And so while that's not necessarily a digital sales channel per se, it's an important aspect of, again, working together, collaborating, and digital sharing of information to speed technology and then speed its deployment. Because again, I think that's the biggest thing. You can have the greatest idea, you can do the best work, you can do it at very low cost, but as long as it's on paper or on the shelf, it's not doing any good. So it's really all about how to get it out, implement it, and then grow it from there and improve it from there.
Good. Thank you. Let's deep dive on one aspect I think is quite exciting in terms of materials/process innovation, wherever we want to put it. That is a catalyst. I think a lot of research, a lot of investments are going into catalysts. Wolfram, which role do you think catalysis will play in the chemical and petrochemical processes of tomorrow?
Yeah, let's go first into the principle of catalysis. It's kind of the magic principle in chemistry or petrochemistry. It's kind of a component being present in at a chemical reaction, being not consumed, but making a special chemical reaction viable or faster. So the Chinese nailed that quite nicely. Actually, the Chinese symbol for catalyst is actually the same as the symbol for a marriage broker. So it's it says, okay, we have to bring something together here, and it's kind of the magic principle, as I say. So today already, the importance of catalysts is quite high. Actually, 90% of all relevant chemical processes today use catalysts in one or the other way, heterogeneous catalysis or homogeneous catalysis. And well, the market size of altogether maybe 30 to 40 billion US dollar is not huge compared to other markets. But if you look at the value generated with all that catalyst, you can actually calculate this in percentage of worldwide GDP, because, as I said, 90% of all relevant chemical processes use this, and this is the component actually which is in focus. That also because the key output of catalysts is, well, they enhance the selectivity of a given reaction. They reduce, therefore, unvalued products, and also they can reduce the energy consumption of a process as well. So if we roll back again and look at what our goals actually are in sustainability, we have to see, the catalysts may be one of the key components which gets us to our sustainability goals. So, but your question was for tomorrow. What roles will catalysts play in the processes of tomorrow? And I could refer to your slide, which Q-CHEm or CO2 to X, or one of a few of my examples. I would say, most to every of that use catalyst. Let's let's see, for example, what we just talked about. It's recycling. Yeah? And at some step at recycling, you arrive at pie oil. Yeah? So, okay, how do you upgrade pie oil? How you process it? Yeah, it's again a catalytic process. Or you then arrive to hydroprocessing, yeah? For example, which is a catalytic process. So in the end, the solution of tomorrow, most likely in many areas, will use catalysts.
Great. No, I mean, that's an area we see a lot also from outside perspective. We see a lot of emphasis from most companies to push research in that area. Let's pick some questions also from the audience. I see some question coming on Slido. I don't know if you want to put on screen, if it's possible to put them on screen. Otherwise, I will pick a couple of them from what I see there on the monitor. There is an interesting one. So, what are the difficulties faced by marketers while managing swift material transformation? I think that's a fair question. Products are changing, and you need to sell it. So how do you adapt your capabilities, your go-to-market, to manage to sell the new products to new customer at the end? Bob, you are the only chemical companies in the panel.
Yeah, we can touch on it. I mean, I think this is, I think this material transformation that we're talking about, right? I think it puts unique challenges on the marketing and sales organization. It puts challenges on the technology organization, on the manufacturing organization. I think from the marketing side, I mean, a lot of this is, we're having to rebuild relationships with customers on what they value, right? And I think, in historical business, around, say a polyolefin material, we understand the value for the application. We understand what the customer wants to use it for. We understand how to position our differentiation in that discussion. But this is a new space, right? So, I think the customers themselves are trying to determine those things. Mm-hmm. And not just the customers that we directly sell to, but potentially a brand or a retailer that we're also collaborating with for the implementation. And they're all trying to position that at the same time without full clarity. And so, I think it requires for those organizations a much closer connectivity in the value chain than in the past. It has to be much less transactional. It's much more about defining the value proposition for the applications more jointly, about positioning how we can get to the application that they're targeting. So look, I think the challenges are it's not as well defined, but I think, again, from an industry perspective, I think that's an opportunity because you're able to, the more you can bring unique value to a customer where they're not sure how to fully position it, you have an opportunity to shape that, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, it's a challenge for sure. But, like we saw in our example with TrueCircle, the early question was, would you find value? What customers want to be engaged? Would brands and the retailers want to be engaged? The clear answer to that was yes. In fact, the problem was that, we were to allocate the small volume completely, and even as we scale with what we're doing now in the Netherlands, that's fully committed also. Then the discussion actually becomes much more important for the marketers, right? Where do you position? Which customers? Which parts of the value chain do you want to target the volume and try to grow it? Because that will, I think, position the future growth for the business. So there's a very important role for the marketing organizations in the transition.
And to evolve from just normal sales, but having
to new value
organized
pools.
by verticals, maybe by sector, and be almost an advisor to the customer to how to use it.
And I think I think we underestimate our role here. We have the ability, because we understand the product requirements, we understand the processing, to coordinate that value chain and play a much more central role than maybe would have in the past around ensuring that we have the right materials to meet the right application needs, that we understand the requirements of the pile and the specifications coming in, for example, in chemical recycling or even in mechanical recycling, and understand the purity requirements, that we can play a critical role in designing those systems. There are a couple of examples that we did at TrueCircle on closed loop, for example, which I think you're going to see more of, and I think the retail example, or the apparel example that you highlighted on shoes is one where you're going to work on managing the material flow from production through an application, through collection and reuse, and I think you're going to see more and more because it ensures purity of that material and makes the recycling process easier, and that's a key role that marketers are going to have to play in designing those business models. We've had several examples in the food space, cosmetic space. You're going to see many more of those coming through.
There were two questions that are related. The one is relates to the security risks and managing the information in the clouds, IoT, etc. And the other one was related to the IP protection in the times of AI. A different one in security, one is more kind of IP protection, but I think they are related. Essentially, how do we manage all this innovation, maintaining a certain level of security and protecting the IP? I don't know who wants to pick it up.
I could say something about the IP point. Yeah. Well, actually, to my mind, it's wrong to imagine our work a little bit like ChatGPT and putting AI with something like with public knowledge into our innovations. I think it's far too special in process development and catalyst development, so that you can't source so much third-party IP. Yeah? So in the end, it will be your IP, what you generate in your laboratories. Yeah? You use, of course, algorithms and tools, yeah? But I think it should be quite clear that the IP generated in your laboratory is yours in the end, irrespective of which tools you use.
And in terms of security concerns for the different, in the cloud, IoT devices, and how to ensure that security?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'll jump in. Bob may have more to comment on this as well, but from my perspective and thinking about the broader Honeywell from my side, this is a huge part of the Honeywell business in our controls and other businesses. We do a lot of automation and we do a lot of cloud data management, and so it's critically important that you've got the right capabilities, right technologies in place, the right protection for anything that you put in the cloud. It's always a concern anytime people connect with the cloud or connect anything through their firewall to an external source. And I would say it's just critically important that it's not a place where you can forget to spend time and attention. You need to make sure that you're working with reputable partners who are supporting it, and that you're maintaining the data security, being able to put your data on the cloud and share it with others or have other analytical tools use it is incredibly powerful. But it's really all about, again, working with partners that are able to secure that data. I think this is a place where, software startups, it's easy to think about working with companies that are just entering the space, but there will be companies that won't have the level of security to protect your data once it's out there. So I think that's, kind of my perspective on that. Now, I think it is different than intellectual property protection, and so I think as we go forward, intellectual property protection amongst technology companies has always been important. It remains important, especially for people that are developing technology, right? That intellectual property is sort of the lifeblood of the business. You lose your intellectual property, you've lost your ability to, continue as a business. I think one of the things I've seen that's really positive in the IP space is that global respect for IP has improved dramatically in even the past 5 to 10 years, right? I think we've always seen this in the world as companies, individuals, and countries develop intellectual property of their own. The understanding of the need to protect it increases, and the structure and the processes around that increase. So as we've seen, broad development and progress in the world, IP is one of those areas that's really sort of kept up. And so as I think about it, our journey in terms of IP, people in the world are more sophisticated about intellectual property, recognizes its value, and recognizing the means to protect it today. So I've seen that as a really positive trend over the past 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah, I would agree with many of Bryan's points. On the risk side, cybersecurity is a huge concern for us, a huge focus. We know that we're going to be enabled by these capabilities, but we also know that we need to make sure that we protect our data. And this, I think, will only become more and more complex. And to your point about, it means trusted partnerships, trusted controls, meeting the requirements even within countries, because there's an ever-evolving regulatory landscape there. Yes, this emergence of a startup with a great capability, you may question how much of your data you want to upload until you have more confidence in it. So I think this changes that dynamic. And there's another piece, which is, value is going to get created by that data, regardless of how people talk about the controls today, the reality is companies entering that space want your data to generate additional value. And I mean, not to pick on the U.S., but I mean, if I go on Amazon or anywhere else, they all know everything I like and what I want to buy, and they tell me and they position it for me. So if we don't think there's not going to be value created by us uploading our data and information outside, I think we're fooling ourselves. So I think we have to think very carefully about that, have trusted partnerships, ensure we have the right controls, and that we're also thinking about, as this gets more commoditized in terms of the ability to leverage these tools, what roles each company needs to have in that space. How much internal capability do you have versus how much do you rely on partners? So I think those are critical questions that I think are evolving. I mean, I think on IP too, I think really well said in terms of the maturity. I worry less about the maturity of the intellectual property landscape and how we manage that, but just that we may not know exactly how to think about claims in a patent around AI today. And it reminds me of 20 years ago, we had this issue with high throughput that, used to be you gave selective examples in a patent and you try to be very careful about what you put as examples and broadly cover claims. But then once you could test everything, you had to disclose all that, everything you tested, and so you actually had more data, some of which may have been inconsistent with past claims. So there will be, I think, a need to evolve how patent attorneys and how scientists think about designing patents and what it covers and how it evolves. But this has always been the case. There's an evolution of, as a new technology direction happens, it leads to a new way of thinking about intellectual property protection. I don't view it as less of a risk than just something we have to figure out.
Maybe I would like to add something on the past two questions. I think the world is going faster. I mean, as much as we are developing process faster through high throughput screening, we have to engage also. And one of the things as Bryan was saying, before we develop a new process, the first we try to develop with somebody, with one customer, because we need to be faster on the market. So when you develop with somebody, you need to be clear on what is your IP, your background, what is their background, and who owns the foreground, and how you share it. So this is something now we are used to discuss. And so this is part of our daily life. As far as the data protection, I think most of us in the room, we have very strong cyber security trainings and policy, which was not the case 10 years ago, because I don't think the risk is so much between ourselves. It is also with external attacks we may face, and how do we protect our own data, but also the data of our customers. So this has become a very strong activity in any company involved with data today, how to protect your own system, whatever you go in the cloud or even inside.
Good. Maybe we have 3 minutes. Maybe we have time for one last question. What are the key changes needed to make innovation process more agile? I think we talk a lot about that, how to increase the speed. I don't know if there is some additional thoughts on that.
Yeah, I can share a few here, because actually this is our experience, a little bit being more agile or faster in our innovation cycles. And there's actually indeed a few tools which you can use, and what you can learn from other areas, for example. If in software development you have something called agile software development. It's called a Scrum process, and you sit together every 2 weeks and look in which direction you head today or in the next 2 weeks. It's a little bit. It's faster. It's no such thing like a 1 year plan for a project, and then we see in December where we are. We have to adapt to the possibilities of the faster experimentation, and have faster cycles in them. But this is maybe not enough. This is just from an internal or inside an organization a possibility. I think to be really successful in the future, we have also on the data level to be able to collaborate more. And this means also that we should be able, for example, to read also data from other organizations. In principle, if we want so, if our cybersecurity systems allow this, and if the strategy is in line with it. But the data interoperability is one thing we normally don't have via operations, and this is something which should happen.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add to that, because I find this as a fascinating topic and one that we've put a lot of effort into. And you need to do all those things, and I think especially the, sort of the interoperability of the data, because what we found is you actually have to break the problem down in different ways. Left to itself, chemical process technology development or catalyst technology development takes a very sequential path. It just does, right? You start with, I've got an idea, you do the basics, and then you get into more and more complex topics and challenges until you're done. And the key part about Agile is, okay, you've got to have, obviously, experimental capabilities that can work fast, and you definitely need to be able to share data, but you've got to be able to break the problem down in a way that you can start to do much more in parallel, even knowing that you're going to have some recycle, right? And so it's that interoperability of data to be able to share across, I'll say maybe independent teams who are working on different aspects of the problem and being able to recycle specifically when you need to. If you don't break it down, you'll still be held hostage to the fact that by its nature it will otherwise be very, very sequential. So it's the ability to figure out how to break it down into pieces that can run in parallel and maintaining the communication you need between those parallel operations so that when somebody has a great discovery or a big failure, everything else can adapt as needed to be. And it's not, in my experience, it's probably something that most of us are still learning to do. It's certainly not, I don't think, a skill that the industry has really internalized up to this point.
Thank you, Bryan. We need then to wrap up this session. I think it has been great. I think we covered a lot of ground from process, material, business model innovation. We talk about kind of topics cut across, like digital. We talk about our sustainability, decarbonization, circularity. We talk about the recycling technology. We talk about emerging process innovation that are very promising, like CO2 to X, bio. We discuss about the catalysts. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a I really enjoyed the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you all.